Donald Trump has spent decades calling himself a genius. He's said it in interviews. He's said it on stages. He's said it on live television. Confidently, repeatedly, without hesitation. But one night, on a late-night show, Stephen Colbert did something no one expected. He didn't argue. He didn't insult. He didn't challenge Trump directly. Instead, he casually brought up one forgotten detail from 1970. A test. A score. A moment from Trump's Wharton years that was never meant to resurface. First, Trump smiled. Then the smile froze, because this wasn't a joke, and it wasn't an attack. It was a simple question that the genius narrative had never prepared for. And in just a few seconds, the story Trump had been telling for decades began to quietly fall apart. The studio that night felt relaxed. Stephen Colbert leaned back in his chair, joking with the audience, letting the laughter breathe. Nothing felt tense. Nothing felt confrontational. And that's exactly why Trump felt comfortable. He had been on late-night shows countless times. He knew the rhythm. Host joke. Audience laughs. Serious questions get softened with humor. Trump thrived in that environment. He smiled confidently, enjoying the applause, feeding off the energy of the room. Every answer came with a smirk. Not because he was nervous, but because he believed he was 2 steps ahead. Colbert played his role perfectly. He didn't rush. He didn't interrupt. He let Trump talk. He asked about success, about business, about intelligence. And Trump, as always, leaned into it. "I went to Wharton," Trump reminded the audience casually. "One of the best schools. Very smart people." The crowd reacted exactly as expected. Light laughter. Some applause. Trump nodded, satisfied. This was familiar territory. For decades, Wharton had been Trump's shield. Whenever questioned, he brought it up. Whenever challenged, he repeated it. And Colbert didn't push back. Not yet. Instead, he smiled, the kind of smile that looks playful but hides intent. "People don't know this," Colbert said lightly. "But you talk a lot about intelligence." Trump chuckled. "Well, you know, people say I'm smart." More laughter. Trump leaned forward slightly now, energized. This was his moment. This was where he usually took control. What Trump didn't realize was that Colbert wasn't building him up. He was lining the pieces up. The audience was relaxed. Trump was relaxed. The room felt safe. And that's when Colbert did what great interviewers do. He changed one small thing. Not his tone. Not his smile. Just the specificity of his question. "Out of curiosity," Colbert said, glancing at his notes, "do you remember taking an aptitude test back in 1970? While you were at Wharton?" The laughter slowed. Trump's smile stayed, but something about it stiffened. "A lot of tests back then," Trump replied. "Very tough school." Colbert nodded. "Right," he said calmly. "Because this one keeps coming up." The room went quiet. No punchline. No joke. Just a date. A year. And a test no one had talked about in decades. Trump shifted in his seat. Not dramatically, but noticeably. For the first time that night, he didn't look amused. Because this didn't feel like late-night comedy anymore. It felt like someone had opened an old file that was never meant to be opened on live television. Colbert didn't rush the moment. He let the silence sit just long enough to feel uncomfortable. Then he looked back up at Trump. Not smiling now, not joking, just curious. "This wasn't just any test," Colbert said. "It was an aptitude and IQ assessment conducted at Wharton in 1970. A few murmurs rippled through the audience. Trump straightened in his chair. "Everybody took tests back then," he said quickly. "Very normal. Very standard." Colbert nodded. "Sure," he replied. "But what's interesting is that this one didn't stay private." He held up a sheet of paper. Not dramatically, not for laugh. Just enough for the cameras to catch it. According to archived academic records, Colbert continued, "This test was used to evaluate cognitive strengths, problem-solving, and analytical reasoning." Trump's smile faded completely now. Because this wasn't opinion. It wasn't commentary. It was documentation. "And here's the part people don't usually hear," Colbert said, glancing briefly at the audience before turning back to Trump. The results didn't describe a genius. They described someone with average analytical scores, stronger verbal confidence, and difficulty with abstract reasoning under pressure. The room changed instantly. No laughter. No applause. Just silence. Trump blinked. That's fake, he said. Total nonsense. Colbert didn't argue. He didn't say Trump was wrong. He simply asked the most dangerous question of the night. Then why does this same assessment get referenced internally at Wharton as a benchmark for confidence outweighing comprehension? 20 seconds passed. Trump didn't respond. He looked down, then back up, then leaned back in his chair. You're twisting things, he said finally. People at Wharton respect me. I'm sure some do, Colbert replied calmly. But this document isn't about respect. It's about performance, at a specific moment in time. The audience leaned forward, because something had just cracked. Trump had built his image on one idea: intelligence equals authority. And now, on live television, that idea wasn't being attacked. It was being quietly dismantled. One more thing, Colbert added. In the same year, students with significantly higher scores were recommended for advanced analytical tracks. He paused. Your name wasn't on that list. Trump's jaw tightened. For the first time, he didn't interrupt, didn't joke, didn't deflect, because there was nothing to deflect to. This wasn't politics. This wasn't media bias. This was his own past, resurfacing in the one place he least expected. Late-night television. And everyone watching could feel it. The genius narrative wasn't being mocked. It was being replaced. Trump leaned forward suddenly. The calm was gone. This is exactly what you people do, he snapped. You dig up old nonsense and pretend it means something. The word you hung in the air. Colbert didn't react, didn't interrupt, didn't defend himself. And that silence made Trump talk more. You're a comedian, Trump continued. Not a psychologist. Not an academic. You're not qualified to judge intelligence. Some nervous laughter came from the crowd. But it didn't land. Because Colbert smiled. Not sarcastically, not smugly, but patiently. I'm not judging anything, he said. I'm reading what the record says. Trump waved his hand dismissively. Records can be twisted. Everybody knows that. Colbert nodded again. That's true, he replied. That's why I didn't interpret it. He tapped the paper lightly. I just quoted it. That line hit harder than any insult. The audience reacted immediately. A low "oh" rolled through the room. Trump tried to recover. You know how many people say I'm the smartest person they've ever met? He said. World leaders, CEOs, professors. Colbert tilted his head. Then this should be easy to clear up, he said. Another pause. Why not release the full 1970 assessment? The question landed like a trap snapping shut. Trump froze. I don't need to prove anything to anyone, he shot back. My success speaks for itself. Colbert didn't challenge that. Instead, he asked something even quieter. Then why bring up IQ at all? Silence. Trump had referenced his intelligence countless times. Interviews, rallies, debates. Now, for the first time, someone had followed that claim all the way back to its origin. And Trump had nowhere to go. You're being disrespectful, Trump said finally. To me, to my family, to my education. Colbert's tone softened, but his words sharpened. I'm being consistent, he said. You've spent years saying intelligence matters. That scores matter. That records matter. He leaned in slightly. So when those same standards are applied to you, why is that disrespect? The audience applauded, not loudly, but steadily. Trump shook his head. This is why people don't trust the media, he muttered. Colbert didn't miss a beat. This isn't the media, he replied. This is your own narrative examined. That was the moment. You could see it on Trump's face. The control he'd walked in with was gone. Because attacking Colbert hadn't worked. Questioning credibility hadn't worked. And claiming superiority without evidence, for once, wasn't enough. The conversation had shifted. Trump wasn't defending his intelligence anymore. He was defending his image, and everyone watching could tell the difference. The interview ended without drama. No shouting, no walkout, no viral insult. And somehow, that made it even more powerful. As the cameras pulled back, Trump adjusted his tie and forced a smile. Colbert thanked him politely, but the room felt different. The audience didn't clap out of excitement. They clapped out of recognition. They had just seen something rare. Not a takedown, not a roast, but a narrative quietly collapse under its own weight. Within minutes of the broadcast, clips began circulating online. Not flashy clips, not dramatic edits, just one moment on repeat. Then why bring up IQ at all? That single line became the headline. Commentators across the spectrum weighed in. Some defended Trump, calling the question unfair. Others said something more revealing. He didn't lose because of the test. He lost because he couldn't explain his own story. And that's what stuck. For decades, Trump had built an image around being naturally brilliant. Smarter than experts, smarter than critics, smarter than the system. But when that claim was traced back to its source, there was no explosion, just a gap. And gaps make people curious. Late-night hosts replayed the exchange. Political analysts slowed it down frame by frame. Even supporters noticed something felt off. Not anger, not humiliation, but avoidance. And avoidance speaks louder than denial. Colbert addressed it briefly on his next show. "I didn't prove anything," he said. "I just asked where the story started." The audience laughed, but the point landed. This wasn't about an IQ test. It was about credibility, about what happens when a powerful narrative is repeated so often that no one ever checks its foundation. Until someone does. And when they do it calmly, without mocking, without attacking, there's nowhere to hide. That night didn't end Trump's career. It didn't expose a secret, but it did something quieter and more lasting. It reminded people that confidence isn't proof. Repetition isn't evidence. And intelligence doesn't announce itself. It explains itself. And when explanation is refused, people notice. That's why this moment didn't trend for a day. It stayed. Because it wasn't loud. It was precise. And sometimes, that's what changes the conversation forever. If you enjoy breakdowns where calm questions unravel powerful narratives, subscribe for more stories like this. And comment below, should public figures be held to the same standards they demand from others? See you in the next one.